Hello, welcome. Today I'm looking at the lost ruins of Arnak. Find out what I think. In the Lost Ruins of Arnak, you will be using cards to place workers on the board in order to dig up resources that you need or to explore new potential dig sites with exciting resources. Along the way, you'll be overcoming guardians, researching on the research track, and building a deck of cards that suits your purposes. There are two types of cards in the game, artifacts and item cards, and as the game progresses, the artifacts become more plentiful while the item cards decrease in number. You'll also be looking to cover up spots on your player board in exchange for valuable items and finish the game with the most points. Points can be got from the research track, from guardians that you've overcome, and from the cards that you buy during the game. The two big resources for gaining stuff are coins, which are generally used to buy things, and compasses, which generally represent an amount of time spent. At the end of 5 quick rounds, the winner is the person who has seen most of the dark side of the jungle and therefore scored the most points. Lost Ruins of Arnak is just a great game. It's just a great game. It combines things I love, worker placement and deck building, and it puts a little bit of a spin on that deck building. That would be the biggest kind of new thing I've seen, I think, in it, along with the Guardians of the Galaxy, which are really cool. So I really like the way that when you, depending on what type of card you buy, and there's only two, so it's not confusing. It's a artifact or an item. And if you buy an item, it goes under your deck. So you know you're going to get that in the next 1 or 2 hands, which is important because you're likely only going to get 5 hands. Well, you're only going to get 5 hands in the game, but you might be able to build a deck that draws cards, so you might get it a bit quicker. The blue ones are great because they give you an action straight away for free. And what I found is there's not really a bad card. There's only cards that don't suit your strategy right now. I've never seen a card and thought, I don't want that. I've always looked at them all and gone, that's good, that's good. And it leads to these situations where in the dying moments of the game, I'm left thinking, right, I want to get up there and do this and do that. And I'm not going to be able to do it all, but I could do a surprising amount of it. And it all depends on how I manipulate those cards. And of course, the cards that give you extra actions give you more options as the game goes on because they're artifacts, and the thematic reasoning being that as you venture deeper into the jungle, you have less support from your camp, so less items, but you find more of these artifacts. On theming, I think it works really well. Eurogames get accused of being dry and stuff, but I feel like they've really put some effort into thematically tying everything in. Yes, sometimes that kind of bows more to the mechanics of the game, as it will do in a Eurogame, but I think they've done a really good job. I really like the idea of the worker placement spots growing as the game goes on. Now, again, due to COVID, I haven't been able to test this at higher player count, but I really want to because more and more spots are going to become available for me to utilise. I've played it at solo and at 2-player, and I don't normally play solo games. So yeah, I think that idea that you go and dig, but it costs you go and explore, but it costs you a lot, and then a guardian's on there, and do you take that fear so that someone else is going to have to sort that guardian out, or do you go, I'll have that for 5 points? I've also found that I tend to lean towards the research tracks. It seems like the most obvious way of getting points, but there's loads of ways of getting points in this game. You can build a really fat deck, get loads of points from cards. You can just go exploring and fight monsters, just concentrate on getting spears. And you've just got these free actions with the researchers that you can hire. Just think it's really, really clever. It's really, really neat. For a game that has so many mechanisms meshed together, they've done it in quite a streamlined way. It plays incredibly quickly, and yet you never feel like you haven't done enough. You'll wish you could have done more, which is a sign of a good game, but you never feel like you haven't done enough. And it's often down to your decisions. You can recognise where you've made those decisions not to. The worker placement element is really interesting because you only have 2 workers. And I will say that 2 players actually feels less crammed than a solo game, because in a solo game, the AI, first you put more blocking tokens out. Secondly, the AI can put up to 6 architects out. So you've really got to prioritise getting your architects out in the solo game, because those spaces might not be there for very long. Anything negative about it? I don't think so. It's a little bit faffy with the longboard. Setup is, it's all right actually. I don't, it takes 5 minutes really once you've played it once and know what you're doing and got it packed away well. There's also a flip side board which has a slightly different research track on, which I haven't tried yet, but I really want to give that a try. So yeah, certainly for a solo and 2-player game, I can wholeheartedly recommend this. For higher play counts, although I haven't tested it, I can't see there's going to be more openness in the initial spots because you won't have as many blocking tokens out, and there'll be more spots because people will discover more likely. The interaction in this game is what we call kind of more indirect interaction, taking cards that people might want, blocking off spots that they might go to, that sort of thing, taking assistance they might want. But on the research track, it's just getting to the top first will give you a slight point advantage. So yeah, it's not as interactive as some games, but compared to some Euros, there is more interaction than I was expecting and had heard about. Replay value, I think there's tons here. I think there's absolutely loads. The different routes of scoring that you can mess with, I still haven't fully explored, seeing how many monsters I can get, the big decks of cards that you use, the interesting deck building style, whether you could do it with less cards, and the solo mode and the double-sided board mean there's quite a lot of variety here into the long term. And because it plays so quickly, I mean, you're talking, it says half an hour per player. I think that's probably overcooking it. I don't think it would take 2 hours with 4 players, especially if they've played the game before. I think you're looking at an hour and a half tops with 4 players. The components are great. It's nice to see CG have some new plastic components. There's none of the skulls from Sulkin and Adrenaline in there. None of the round discs are in there, and they could have easily done that. Components, artwork, the artwork, I mean, it didn't jump out at me as amazing, but it's not bad, it's not terrible, it's by no means distracting. I'm not a big one who looks at cards for the artwork. I'm often looking at the powers, and when it comes to the graphic design and iconography, it's all super good. The player aids are good. The solo mode is a simple one to implement. If I'm going to play a solo mode, I need not to have pages and pages of what ifs, so that's great. Yeah, it gets a high ranking from me, this one. This is definitely one that's going to stay in my collection, and big thank you to Czech Games Edition for sending me this advanced copy to have a look at. I do think if you like your deck builders, if you like your worker placement games, this is one you need to check out, have a look at, and perhaps pre-order. So that was Lost Ruins of Arnak. Thank you very much for joining me on this review. Do like and subscribe to our YouTube channel, hit the notification bell so you get notified. And remember, we're now on Twitch, streaming on Thursday nights, video games and board games, and you can come on, shape what we do, be a part of it. Also, Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. We do Facebook Lives every Wednesday where we have a jolly old time. See you next time.